Hello and welcome to the Godscast at Graphic Policy. My name is Stephen Attewell.
And I'm Chris Holcomb.
And this is issue number 12, the first issue of Volume 3, Commercial Suicide. And it is kind of a departure in style from the previous volumes. We don't have, for once, artist Jamie McKelvie. Sorry, Chris, did I interrupt you?
No, I lost. You dropped out for a second, so why don't you repeat that?
Oh, sure. So I just said that this is the first volume where we don't get first issue where we don't get Jamie McKelvie on the art. And it's kind of like an interesting, making virtue out of necessity, which is that like McKelvie was super busy as an artist, and so they needed someone to fill in for him. And then they got this idea of like, okay, well, why don't we play with that? Like, why don't we do different art styles and use that to like represent different points of view?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of, I forget what show did that, or what movie did that. I remember Dead Space movie did that. The movie was shit, but I did like it's told in a kind of Rashomon style where
each
four characters right, and each person has a completely different art studio behind them.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I appreciate that they're at least going with something. So we open with interestingly, the person that we just saw die. This is Laura. And like what I like is that it's very obviously video footage that we're getting like little fast forward indicators, and there's like timestamps and frame counts and all that good stuff. So we're getting a sense that like this is not diegetic, that there is someone trying to turn this into a narrative. And it's interesting, especially given what's just happened, that it's all about like who Laura was, right? Is she the high priestess? Is she a wannabe goddess? Or as Beth will say, is she a star fucker?
Oh, Beth.
She's so angry.
Yeah, I can see how Beth is righteously angry here, although I am going to clock you on those eyebrows.
Okay.
Do something about them.
Yeah. So it's interesting. They're in what looks like Beth's room. So like I definitely feel like we're coming down a notch in terms of like production value. Because we were sort of talking about with Cassandra that like she had a video crew and an audio crew who like looked like she was at least working for some sort of publication, even if like she was web only or whatever. This feels much more indie.
Yeah, and it's honestly the thing it reminded me most of at this point is House of Cards.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've seen it.
I stopped watching fairly early on.
Most political scientists don't get very far. But they do this kind of cool thing where I don't know about the antagonist, but the foil tends to jump from minor character to minor character. So you'll see Underwood deal with one problem, but then there's a loose thread out there that suddenly starts to become a bigger problem as in this person starts to investigate and dig a little deeper, and then later on that problem is dealt with in another way, but then there's more loose ends and it kind of snowballs from there. So yeah, that's the only part of House of Cards I'm really into. So yeah, this is like Beth. We've seen one panel of her. She got fired for
narking on her boss, basically.
Exactly.
And yeah, so Beth puts together a clue, right? That she realizes that Laura knew how to contact the Morrigan. And we sort of fill in that like what happened between Beth and Cassandra, that like she fired her and like took all of her stuff, and she's like pissed off that, you know, her own gig isn't
Mhm.
going so well. And then I have to say, my favorite moment is where the dude, Tony with an I, sort of says, you know, hey, you know, why don't you talk to your old boss, because she's got to feel bad for you because you were almost a god. And Beth says, you know, put what is it? Point a camera at Tony. We've got you know, something that'll make our film unique. Actual footage of a man going and fucking himself.
Yeah, that is really good writing. Although I I got really confused here because I tried reading this without my glasses, and in these 3 shots, he looks like a centaur.
Oh yeah. Because the sort of black shirt and black pants do kind of blend together.
Especially with her head down like that. I'm like, wait, what's going on?
But I do love her expression. That just like, it's almost anime style with like the blush across the cheeks and the nose.
It's the sweat drop that does it for me. And
where it's like,
panel.
I mean, obviously he's kind of telling the truth, but like she doesn't want to admit that, and she's just, you know, this kind of tiny little ball of anger. Right. So we then cut to the scene of the crime outside of Inanna's residency, which has been like decked out in flowers, like you know, Princess Diana, or like Ground Zero, or, you know, some spot of like tragedy.
Right, and I see a lot of pink here, so I'm assuming, like Prince loved his purple, I'm assuming Inanna liked his pink.
And also, I will just say throughout the issue, I really like the coloring. It's kind of a little bit more of a like pastels.
Yeah, it's a bit jarring, but I think it works. You might need a little more selling on it.
So I also like, speaking of like learning more about Beth and like what kind of a personality she has, that like she sort of what was the line? You're a bit of a bitch, Beth. I was Cass's intern. I learned a lot. Where you're sort of like, yeah, she kind of did pick up like a lot of bad habits.
I feel like these journalists need to be unionized personally, but
yeah, the assistants seem to get it in the neck a lot. That's what happens with the gig economy. So then Baphomet, Baal appears literally in a bolt of lightning to like investigate the scene of the crime. And you can see he's pretty pissed off because he threatens to kill a cop.
Yeah, and I feel like cops should have gotten the message by now that there is no good out here. You saw the man descend on a fucking bowl of lightning.
It is kind of an interesting, like, I think this is generally a problem in any kind of like modern set fantasy of like, you know, it's got to stay recognizably modern in order to like have that recognition from the audience, but at the same time, like, it needs to, you know, that means that it can never really adapt that much to the fantasy elements. And it's like, you got to think at this point, like, human society would have adapted, you know, that like, okay, here's how you deal with gods and here's how you don't deal with gods. And, you know, so, you know, he gets very lucky. Baal decides to jump away in a bit of lightning. And then Beth has an idea. And I love that all of this happens over Twitter DMs.
Yeah, it reminds me of a very American Vandal, how the second season basically revolves around an Instagram account.
And we also learned that Beth is a Gold Star lesbian.
Yeah, we've had some discussion of that about that on our Buffy podcast and what that means. We're bitches and money. She's a lesbian. I'm a gay man. We've both sort of decided that the Gold Star lesbian / gay man is a very problematic concept and needs to be tossed.
So I think it does.
So
yeah, I think it sort of
Please
speaks.
don't.
Yeah, I think it does speak to something in. Well, I would be very surprised if Cassandra had hired her in the first place, if she was. But like, it does speak, I think, to something in Beth's personality. So she then makes a deal with Baal to be interviewed. Like, that's her quid pro quo. So we get another one of these 6-panel setups where Ball's on camera and he's talking to the unseen interviewer, and he comes out of the closet. And it's this really bittersweet sort of meditation on like what it means to, have been in a relationship when the other person died unexpectedly, and that, he doesn't have the sense of closure.
Yes.
So
when you say come out of the closet,
yeah.
Are you talking about his relationship with Inanna or his
kind
same-sex
of both? Because like
proclivities?
I don't remember exactly what issue it is, but like when Laura like brought up to Cassandra that Inanna and Ball had slept together, she said something along the lines of like, that's off-brand for him. And especially
right. It shocks me in that this comic has had a very gender fluid aesthetic to it. So coming out as being attracted to the same gender doesn't really mesh with that. And I could see in universe being part of his brand. It seems like most of the gods are pansexual.
I guess what I would say is slightly different
other than
about
Woden.
Ball is that, like, how do I put this? I think there's that certain kind of like the way that misogyny shades into homophobia a little bit, where the line that kind of hit to me was he said, "I don't cry, I refuse to cry, crying isn't me." That like Ball is all about this image of like very masculine power, right? He's the rap star. He's got this massive mural of himself as a god that other gods bow to. He drives the flashy cars. He can't admit something that he might see as like a weakness, or like not being that, like fitting that very narrow definition of masculinity. Exactly.
Right. Toxic masculinity can even come into
so I kind of think that's what's going on. And I mean, in some way, I think it's like a good thing for him to like, make this move. Unfortunately, he's doing it for kind of the worst reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I've long since kind of given up on figuring out what Ball is about, in that he's so, of all of them, I feel like he's the one who is the least able to divorce his brand from himself.
So yeah, we then go to the London Underground, where Beth jumps down onto the railroad tracks and summons Morgan. I love this line about where she summons her and then says, "Please," and Morgan says, "Only because you said please, almost God, almost dead." I do kind of admire Morgan for she has something of a gift for extemporaneous poetry.
That's true. Yeah, it's
it definitely
really
speaks to like
on Beth's part.
Desperation, because like she's literally throwing herself in front of a train. She is a few seconds away from death.
And counting on a god caring
and then we get this fight scene between Morgan and Ball through through Beth's not just Beth, but Beth and Tony's camera lenses, and it's kind of this like, I don't know, interesting kind of off kilter, like a lot of jagged edges. It's not really I think it's deliberately disjointed. Speaking of being called out, when Ball says, "Quit your Game of Thrones bullshit," I was like, "Oh no!" But I live for my Game of Thrones bullshit.
Yeah.
And I did think it was interesting, like,
on that, didn't you?
speaking of sort of Morgan's play acting skills, like she breaks character here, and I think it's like one of the only times we've seen her break character.
Yeah. I don't know. I was kind
Yeah,
of
and
thrown.
I think
I'm
there's a very
still watching a
deliberate
man beat the
ugliness to
shit out of a
this.
woman.
And yeah, he just woof. It is pretty ugly to see this. And we get this kind of like, I think, a really good line here. Love makes fools of us all. And then no shit. And what's like, speaking of like weirdness and like it being unpleasant to watch, all of a sudden Woden is the like sane and sensible person because he kind of breaks up the fight.
Yeah. Well, I feel that from Woden in that he is he's terrible, but he's also has no illusions about how terrible he is. I mean, hell, he's ripping off Daft Punk.
He definitely sort of a more controlled shithead. So then the gods depart, and like speaking of I was gonna say, like, in terms of like character mantras, this bit where Woden says, "What did Ananke tell us?" And then Baal responds, "We find them, we take them down, we don't make it any worse." And that really, I think, like sums up Baal's kind of mentality, because we've seen him do that throughout, right? That was his same kind of modus operandi with Lucifer back when she was breaking out of prison. Like, I think that's kind of like where he finds his role within the Pantheon, is kind of the enforcer of the rules. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
but this is very personal for him.
Completely out of it. So speaking of sort of things that are very revealing of characters, Beth's appearance, like after the fight where she says, tell me we got all that, then I'm okay. Now let's get out of here before we get blamed for any of this. Like, this kind of reminds me a little bit of, did you see that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, Nightcrawler? Kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
I did, yeah. I see it now. I didn't really like that movie, but I just feel that this Beth's kind of energy is what this story needs, and that I was really worried at the end of the last one. It's like, well, we've lost our human narrator, so now I have to see are we going to have God narrators at this point? But no, kind of like Beth is sleazy and is honest about who she is and wants what she wants. We need a Beth to be here, like a less Cassandra, she's a less pretentious Cassandra. Like, because Cassandra pretends that she's all after the truth and everything. No, she wants the same click views as Beth does, and she wants the same personality boost and career that Beth does, but Beth is a lot more honest about how she goes about it and what she's actually trying to do. So yeah, I think I'm super excited. I hope Beth
and then the very last page of
narrator
the issue,
/ protagonist going
Baphomet
forward
shows up after the action and repeats what his character mantra, which is "You or me, no choice at all," and sort of disappears back into the background.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes,
and we get another.
I do like how they do these, where now she's in jail
on the next page.
Okay, so that's the end of the issue. Chris, do you want to plug your stuff, and then we'll jump into spoilers?
Sure thing. Come listen to me complain and or gush about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. I haven't mentioned that before, but because it's the Joss Whedon universe, we have to cover Angel as well. But yeah, it's the same format. My best friend, we're bitches and money. She's bitches, I'm money. She's saw the show in the 90s, loves it. I have no idea what's coming.
Cool. So
we watch it and we tell you what we thought about it.
2,
come check us out.
3, 4, 5. So I don't have a lot of stuff here. The main thing is going back to this issue, I mean, first of all, Beth's whole arc to the most recent issue of like, she kind of is what everyone thinks Laura is, that like she is the star fucker, the wannabe god. So like we definitely sort of see that aspect of her character here. The other thing is, man, the whole revelation about Baal. Like you literally see him crying fire here, and I can't believe I didn't realize it sooner. So yeah, that's it. We'll quickly jump into issue 13. You can find me at Twitter at Stephen Attewell. You can find me at WordPress or Tumblr at Race for the Iron Throne. And I'll see you next issue. Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.